Jeremy Clarkson just admitted something most farmers would never say out loud. Without Amazon's money, Diddley Squat Farm would not exist right now. Not would have struggled. Not would have had a tough year. Would not exist. And while you were watching the headlines about his cancer remission and the Season 6 announcement, almost nobody noticed the sentence buried underneath it. The one that explains exactly how close this whole empire came to falling apart. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Season 6 might be the most important 8 episodes Jeremy Clarkson has ever filmed, and why the answer affects a lot more than just one farm in Oxfordshire. Give it a click. Let's start with the line everyone skipped past. Last month, headlines were fixed entirely on one story. Clarkson's cancer is in remission. Brilliant news and genuinely worth celebrating. But sitting quietly inside that same announcement was a financial confession that tells you far more about where this farm actually stands. Clarkson said, in plain English, that without the television series, his farm would not have survived 2025. He posted it himself. Most farms don't have a TV show keeping them afloat. 30 seconds ago, you didn't know that sentence existed. Now you do. And it changes everything about how you should be watching Season 6. Because here's the part that should stop you cold. Clarkson isn't a struggling smallholder. He's got 1,000 acres in Oxfordshire, a farm shop that pulls in tourists from across the country, a brewery producing Hawkstone lager, a pub, the farmer's dog, 3 newspaper columns a week. If a man with that much financial cushion is saying the television show is what kept the lights on, what does that tell you about the thousands of British farms that don't have Amazon writing them a check? Let's rewind for a second, because to really understand how dependent this farm has become on Amazon, you need to remember how this all started. Clarkson's farm began almost by accident. A show built around one man trying, and mostly failing, to run a working farm without any real agricultural background. Nobody, including Clarkson himself, expected it to become one of the most watched shows on the entire platform. But it did. And somewhere along the way, the show stopped being a side project and became the actual economic engine of Diddley Squat. That's an uncomfortable position for any business to be in. When your farm shop's footfall, your beer's marketing reach, and your pub's entire customer base are all downstream of one television contract, you are not really running an independent farm anymore. You are running a production tied to a streaming platform's renewal decisions. And 2025 is the year that dependency got tested in the worst possible way. So let's actually break down what happened, because you can't understand why Season 6 matters until you understand what nearly ended the whole thing. It started with the worst harvest Clarkson says he's ever had. Heat waves, then drought, across the whole country. For a 1,000-acre arable farm, a bad harvest isn't an inconvenience. It's a financial emergency running into hundreds of thousands of pounds in lost income. Arable farming runs on thin margins even in a good year. Seed costs, fertilizer, fuel, machinery repairs, none of that gets cheaper just because the sky refuses to cooperate. When the yield drops, the costs stay exactly the same, and the gap between what you spent and what you earned back has to come from somewhere. Then came the rain. Relentless, autumn-long rain that delayed replanting and wrecked the soil condition right when the farm needed to recover. This is the part people underestimate. A bad harvest followed by a bad autumn doesn't just cost you one season, it costs you the start of the next one too. You're going into the following year already behind. And then, right on top of that, came bovine tuberculosis. On the 31st of July 2025, Clarkson posted, "Bad news from Diddley Squat. We've gone down with TB. Everyone here is devastated." Now, if you've watched the show, you've heard TB mentioned in passing. But you've probably never had anyone actually explain what it does to a farm financially, so let's break it down properly, step by step. The moment a farm tests positive for bovine TB, the Animal and Plant Health Agency is notified and the farm goes into a legally enforced lockdown. No cattle can be bought. No cattle can be sold. Not one animal moves on or off that land until the entire herd passes a clean test. That's not a suggestion. It's the law, and it exists to stop the disease spreading between farms. At Diddley Squat, that lockdown froze all cattle sales for 2 full months. 2 months of zero income from livestock, while every single feed cost, every vet bill, every hour of labor kept running exactly as normal. Imagine running any business where, for 2 months straight, you're legally barred from selling your product, but every single overhead keeps billing you regardless. That's the position bovine TB puts a beef farmer in. And it gets worse. The cow that tested positive was Pepper, an animal viewer had watched grow up on camera from a calf, pregnant with twin calves. Under UK law, a TB-positive animal has to be culled, no exceptions, no appeals. Pepper was culled, and her unborn calves were lost with her. Clarkson described the family as absolutely devastated, and if you've watched even one season of this show, you believe every word of it. This isn't a spreadsheet loss to him. These are animals he and his team have raised, named, and filmed for years. Then there's Endgame, an Aberdeen Angus bull that Clarkson had purchased for $5,500, who returned an inconclusive TB result. And for a farmer, inconclusive is almost crueler than a straightforward positive. A positive result is at least final. You know where you stand. Inconclusive means the animal sits in limbo, retested, watched. Nothing resolved for weeks, sometimes months, while you wonder whether you're about to lose another animal and another chunk of income. Now stack it all up. A failed harvest across 1,000 acres. A 2-month sales freeze on cattle. Beloved animals culled. An expensive bull sitting in quarantine limbo. Hawkstone beer bringing in some revenue, but a brewery cannot replace a working farm's core income. And the farmer's dog had only opened in August 2024, still finding its feet, still building a regular customer base, nowhere near able to plug a gap that size. And all of this was happening while Jeremy Clarkson was fighting cancer. He was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer during the filming of Season 5. He had surgery. He had complications serious enough to put him back in hospital. Filming stopped entirely while he recovered. And the crew, who Clarkson has said were filming 2 or 3 days a week, every single week, for 5 years without a proper break, were running on empty long before any of this happened. Think about what that actually means in practice. One man was simultaneously running a farm in financial crisis, a brand new pub still finding its footing, a brewery, 3 newspaper columns a week, and a television series, while going through active cancer treatment. There was no version of 2025 where this was going to be an easy year. And now, they're trying to film Season 6 on top of everything that came before it. It's worth pausing here on something the headlines rarely mention. None of this rests on Clarkson alone. Caleb Cooper, Lisa Hogan, Charlie Ireland, Gerald, and the rest of the team have all been carrying this alongside him, through the harvest failure, through the TB outbreak, through his cancer treatment. A farm this size, running this many businesses at once, does not survive on one man's effort. It survives because a small team of people kept showing up through what was, by any measure, one of the worst years the farm has had. That's a detail worth remembering the next time you see Caleb joking around on camera. Behind the humor, this has been a genuinely brutal stretch for everyone involved. Here's where it gets genuinely alarming. The official ClarksonsFarm page confirmed Season 6 back in April 2026. Buried in that announcement, almost as a footnote, was this line. Filming has already faced a few hurdles, including a break from production, a positive TB test, and months of relentless rain. Read that again. Season 6 hadn't aired a single episode, and it had already survived 3 separate production crises. Another production halt. TB testing positive again, meaning the exact disease that nearly broke the farm in 2025, has returned in 2026. And whether so severe it physically stopped filming. You cannot fake bad weather for a documentary. You cannot schedule around a TB lockdown. Every week of delay is a week of crew costs and contractual obligations ticking over, with nothing to show for it on camera. This isn't a story about one celebrity having a rough year. It's a warning about the state of British farming right now. Clarkson has more financial protection than 99% of farmers in this country, multiple income streams, a media profile, a built-in audience, and even he has said the television money is what kept his farm alive. That's not really a headline about him. That's a headline about everyone else. The thousands of farms across Britain facing the exact same harvest failures and disease outbreaks, without a Prime Video contract to fall back on. But here's the thing about Jeremy Clarkson, his critics keep underestimating. The man does not quit. When the council blocked his farm shop, he fought them for 2 years, and won. When Amazon axed the Grand Tour, he built an entirely new television career out of a muddy field in Oxfordshire. When the harvest failed, the cameras kept rolling. When cancer put him in a hospital bed, in the final scene of season 5, he looked into the camera and said, "If all goes well, I'll see you for season 6. And if it doesn't, I won't. Take care, everyone." Had is not a man asking for sympathy. That is a man telling you exactly how much he's willing to fight for what he built. And he came through it. The cancer is in remission. He's called himself, in his own words, without a doubt the world's luckiest man. Season 6 is confirmed for summer 2027, later than the usual May or June release, and that delay tells its own story about just how much disruption this production has absorbed to get this far. So here's the real question nobody's asking. What happens to everything Clarkson built if this show ever stops? The farm shop will keep trading, Hawkstone will keep brewing, the pub will keep pouring pints. But the television show isn't just extra income, it's the engine pulling hundreds of thousands of visitors to a farm shop in the Cotswolds that would otherwise, by any normal commercial logic, be too remote to draw that kind of crowd. Without the show, Hawkstone loses its biggest marketing platform on Earth. Without the show, the farmer's dog loses the exact audience that makes people drive out of their way to a country pub in Oxfordshire. The entire empire Clarkson and Lisa Hogan have built is held up, in no small part, by the pull of that Amazon Prime series. And season 6 might be the most important set of episodes they've ever filmed, not because of ratings, but because of what happens to Diddley Squat if it goes wrong. Here's what's wild. Clarkson's Farm has done something no farming show in history has managed. It's made millions of people who never once thought about British agriculture suddenly care. People now understand what a TB lockdown actually costs a farmer. People now understand why a bad harvest is a financial catastrophe and not just a weather story. And every one of those things was invisible to the public before a millionaire TV presenter put on wellies and started losing money on camera in front of everyone. We'll be tracking every twist as season 6 comes together, right here on Britain's Exposed. If you want to actually understand what's happening behind the headlines, instead of just the highlight reel, that's exactly what this channel does, every single upload. Before you go, tell me this. Do you think Diddley Squat survives without the show? Drop your answer in the comments, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. We've got viewers from the UK all the way to Australia and Ireland, and I genuinely want to know who's with us on this one. And if this is your first time here, hit subscribe now because we're about to cover the Hawkstone numbers, the farm shop's real finances, and exactly how bad this TB crisis is getting for farms beyond Diddley Squat. You do not want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.